Hola, comadre.
How are
How are
you?
you? I'm doing good. Every time we start this, we start in Spanish, and I just be like, ¿Cómo estás?
¿Dónde
But
está la
okay.
biblioteca?
¿Dónde estás? ¿Dónde está? We're all of a sudden we're in
Spanish
Spanish
lessons.
class.
Honestly, one of these days we
Yeah,
should totally do, well, attempt for me to do an episode in Spanish. I think that would be so fun.
that would be so funny. No, we should just troll everyone and be like Spanish lessons with Val and Jenny.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh,
Yeah, your girl is a no sabo on the path to
you are a
fluency.
sisabo to
I'm
fluency.
not, I feel like I can't really call myself that anymore because, like, I do
You are
understand.
a very sabo. Yeah,
I
sabo. You
sabo.
are very sabo. You sabo. You sabo so hard.
I'm going from a no sabo kid to se. Yo se.
To say, see.
Oh my
All
gosh.
right,
Hello.
everyone. So, hello. We are back. So, this month we are ending October and going into November, and there's this very beautiful, magical, sweet spot in that transition where Day of the Dead happens. And so today we have a special episode for you guys. It is our Dia de Muertos episode. And
Yeah.
Jenny and I put a lot of work into this, so please subscribe because we are doing overtime for you guys.
We're sleuthing, we're
With much love.
researching.
With much love, go subscribe.
Yeah.
With all due respect, go subscribe. Okay, so Jenny, how should we start this? I did a lot of research on the background of how it started, what it is. Should we start there from the beginning?
I guess we should start in talking about like our own personal experiences with it growing up. So for me, I knew about it because I'm Mexican. So like I've heard about Dia de los Muertos, but my family didn't really celebrate. My grandma is very, very Catholic. Like so much so to the
Mm-hmm.
point where, and I've told Val this story before, but I went to Disneyland when I was like 12 with my cousins and my mom and my grandma. My poor grandma, she was struggling on the Haunted Mansion.
Mm.
Like I don't know if she like understood that it was like fake, but poor thing. She was like holding my mom's shoulder through the whole ride. She's just like a scaredy cat and she's like super religious and just doesn't like anything to do with death. I think that's kind of a tender topic for her in general. Her dad
Mm.
passed away when she was 13, so yeah, it's not really something that I've like learned about in depth, and it's always something that I have been interested in because it is such a part of my
Mm-hmm.
culture. And then later on in the episode we are going to talk a little bit about Coco and kind of its little footprint that it's left in the culture. That's actually kind of where I learned a lot about it. So we'll talk about that later.
Mm.
But Val, what are your experiences?
So, I did grow up in Mexico for my childhood, very briefly, but I still had amazing experiences and very like rich and cultural. When my grandfather passed away on my mom's side, we definitely celebrated Day of the Dead. And it was just, I personally feel like I was very lucky to experience that and have like the smell of the flowers and taking them to the graveyard and decorating and seeing other graveyards that also, were like popping in color and like seeing all of that. And also not be scared or afraid of being in a graveyard
Yeah.
because I feel like as I've gotten older and experienced more like American like way of processing grief, it's like the funeral, everybody's in
Mm.
black, you go to the burial, and it's not a very colorful experience. So I definitely remember like playing tag in the cemetery and playing with
That's
flowers
crazy.
and like
But that's like,
yeah, I know, right?
but like it's cool to see. Like I'm like, damn, she was playing. That's hardcore.
Yeah.
But like, no, that's cool though because it is such a different mentality towards death, and it's not as like feared. It's more like, well, this is just part
Mhm.
of life.
Yeah. Yeah, so it was definitely like that. I think my mom, her family embraced it a little bit more, especially when her dad died. So yeah, and then in elementary school, I did attend like kindergarten, first grade, and second grade there in Mexico. So I remember learning about it like as a student, like where it came from, why some people choose to celebrate it because again Mexico is a very Catholic country. Some people do celebrate it, some people don't celebrate it, and also it is an Aztec holiday. Like it's not Catholic. Spain doesn't celebrate Day of the Dead. So it's like a very like Aztec thing. So with that, like a lot of people are like, oh, like that's like poor people stuff, or like, oh, that's like the indigenous people, like they do that stuff. But like now, because like Jenny said, like Coco, because it's become so popular, now a lot of people are like, oh yeah, like this is my culture, like yeah, I do this. But even in Mexico, there were people that are like, oh no, like I'm above that, like
Mm-hmm.
I don't do that. That's for poor people.
Yeah.
Or like even like flowers, like marigolds, they're very affordable. And so it's like what people can afford to like take to their dead. But now, like I've gone to Mexico in recent years, and now marigolds are like really expensive
Yeah.
because they've like blown up in popularity. So it's like all of a sudden things that were super affordable for the dead, now it's like, yo, like I can't even afford this flower
Yeah.
kind of thing.
Um, that reminds me, you sent me a video at the beginning of the month, and it was talking about how a lot of people are using like Chinese flour. I can't remember exactly what flour it is. Do you remember what video I'm talking about? It's like they were saying something
Yeah.
along the lines of like if you really want to celebrate and support the culture, like make sure you know what flour you're buying, because like technically people have purchased these flours instead because it is a less expensive alternative, but at the same time you're supporting more of like a mass company rather than supporting like the local vendors, that kind of a thing, I think is what the video was about.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. So it's interesting because I mean, I guess at the end of the day, like things are always changing and we're always evolving. But it's crazy to see like where the holiday has come from when I learned about it when I went to school to like celebrating it to like being it like a mass thing that blew up because of like movies. Because I think it blew up too after the James Bond Spectre. Like there's that scene from the James Bond.
I don't think
Yeah.
I mean, I've seen
So
a few of the different movies, but I know they have like they always, it's like Batman, like they always have new ones coming out. So I'm
yeah.
just like, okay, like
Yeah,
yeah, I haven't seen that scene
yeah.
though.
So that one is specifically in Mexico City, so it's filmed there. So it was like a big thing. So they really like went all out and had a parade, and since then they've like kept it up to like that level, like that standard. But now it's become very like touristy where like people travel to Mexico in October to experience that. So I think it's cool cuz like go Mexico like
Like
business,
people are
like
learning
why
and
not?
yeah, sharing the
Yeah,
culture.
yeah, but it wasn't. Yeah, but it wasn't as popular when I was growing up. Yeah,
Yeah.
I think.
That's interesting. That's really cool. I really didn't know because obviously we've talked about some of your experiences growing up in Mexico, but I don't think that we've ever gotten like
Mhm.
super specific. So like that's a really specific memory that is super interesting to me because again, I grew up differently. I had more of that Americanized like mentality on death. And actually, a quick side tangent because I feel like it kind of still has to do with the episode because it is about death, which is interesting because I think you and I went into this being like, this is going to be an interesting palate cleanser episode, but now we're talking about death. So it's like, maybe it is a little deep, like, interesting regardless, though. But, anyways, there was this girl that I worked with in Florida, and her and I were getting
Mhm.
to know each other, and she is Moroccan. And so it was actually kind of interesting having this conversation with her because for some reason my grandpa's passing came up in conversation. So she was telling me about her grandpa's passing, and as we're talking about it, we're realizing there's like a lot of similarities in like the time of year. She was like, yeah, like it was really hot that day, like I remember, and this and that. And so as we're having this conversation, we realized our grandpas passed away on the exact same day. And I was like, whoa, that's like kind of
Whoa.
crazy. So then the conversation kind of transitioned into like what's it called? Like funeral practices in America versus Morocco. And she was like, I sometimes I want to, because she at that time she was dating a guy who was raised Catholic, and she was like, sometimes I want to have these conversations with him and ask him about why they do certain things the way that they do because I just don't understand it. But I think sometimes he feels judged, and so like I'm afraid to ask him why people do it that way. And I was like, okay, well, like ask me. I was raised Catholic, like I'll tell you. And so it kind of went into like a really big conversation about religion overall, but just to kind of keep it on theme for the episode, we were talking about how in America, usually the body gets embalmed and then you see the body like a few days later or maybe like a week or two later depending on the circumstances of the death, and everybody goes and looks at the body. Catholic, usually there is a rosary, so you'll go and literally the body will be there and you'll pray at the rosary, and then the next day will be the actual funeral. Usually it's like a closed casket type of situation because the casket is about to go into the ground at the actual funeral. But that's the way that I've been raised whenever I've attended funerals. And she was like, that's just crazy to me. Like, I'm not trying to be judgmental, but like doesn't it freak you out that like there's like, you know, this dead person in the room and like everybody's looking at it? And I was like, honestly, like thinking about it, it is kind of a weird concept. It really is. But I feel like I'm really grateful that it was that way for me, because at the time that my grandpa passed away, I wasn't living in town. I wasn't living in Las Cruces. So that gave me time to fly down there and see the funeral and make peace with the fact that he had passed away. Maybe we should put a little trigger warning on this episode since we are talking about death, but I remember whenever I walked up to his body, I laid my hand on his chest and his chest felt cold. And when I
Mm-hmm.
realized that he was cold, I was like, okay, like he's gone, like he's passed away now. And that gave
Mm-hmm.
me so much closure because it wasn't like, oh, like he's visiting somewhere or I just haven't seen him in a long time. It's like, no, like he's gone now. You know what I mean? Um,
Mm-hmm.
so then I asked her, I was like, well, how do they do it in Morocco? And she was like, so usually what happens is as soon as the person passes, everybody is let know and they all come right then and there. And I was like, really? And she was like, yeah. So, like, there's no embalming that's done. Like, they will get buried that same day. We all go and see the body and we pray over it or do whatever we need to do. And then we wrap them up in this white sheet and then we bury them. And I was like, that's really interesting. And I was like, that's so different from me, because for me, I feel like I would be more scared because of the fact that they just passed. But I also kind of like that because I feel like it's getting that closure right then and there, processing it as much as you can. And then I honestly, for me personally, I do like the like wrapping in the sheet thing. I feel like it feels more intimate because you're like directly connected to the earth rather than in this box. That is just my opinion, but it was a really cool and open conversation. And so I think that's one of the reasons why we wanted to have an episode like this, is because we want to share our culture and we want to talk about the reasons why and the traditions that they come from. I think witnessing all kinds of different cultures is so beautiful, and it's such an amazing part of being a human being, is getting to learn why other people do things a different way.
I'm really glad you shared that because I also have notes from like other cultures. I sent you a video and I'll also try to post it, but it was I think an Asian American talking about some Asian customs or cultures and they believe in spirits and how sometimes they'll just leave like little shrines for spirits so that they could protect them or like not harm them. I'm thinking of like for example Spirited Away. Like I forgot the director, but that really
Studio
famous movie of
Ghibli.
Spirited Away, I think
Yeah.
yes, that ties into a lot of like their culture and tapping into spirits. Or even like K-pop demon hunters, like literally like demon hunters, but they believe in spirits. Or even Egyptians, they buried their dead with like a lot of stuff because they had to go with like stuff into like the whatever the underworld or their next life. So like every culture has a thing. The Romans would put like the coins on their dead, so they had money for the ferry so they
Oh.
could go to the underworld or whatever. So it's really interesting because I did like research a lot about our culture and like other cultures, and then you brought up Moroccan culture, and I'm probably not 100% or specific or accurate because I am not of that culture. I can only speak for my own and my own experience, but other cultures also do other things for their dead. So yeah, like I think the beauty in Jenny and I is that we're both connected to our Latin culture and like how we've seen dead in our family or in our culture, I guess. Yeah.
Mm.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I think it's really cool that you had that experience and that someone was able to ask you and you were able to share. And then also, yeah, I think it's definitely different. Yeah, yeah. I don't know. I don't know what else. Okay, so I have a few questions. What does Dia de los Muertos personally mean to you, or has that changed the way you view death or life, or the way you grew up? Like, do you incorporate it more than your family, maybe?
So I've never personally made an altar. I would like to. I don't think I'll be able to do this year because I have a very busy Halloween weekend, and I just didn't prioritize it enough this year. But maybe next year I will take part in that, just because I think it is such a beautiful tradition, and I do like how it makes you feel. It makes you feel close. I think that's the biggest thing. Is like
Mm-hmm.
a lot of people
Mm-hmm.
feel so what's the word, disconnected from those who have passed, because obviously their physical form is not
Mm-hmm.
here, and that can be a very heartbreaking thing. So I feel like utilizing this tradition can help you a be reminded of them, b celebrate the life that they had here, and c just like take part in a rich culture that is so maybe not welcoming. I don't know if that's the right word, but it just gives you more of like a warm thought of like that part of life, because it is a part of life. Like we are all going to go. And I think knowing
Mm-hmm.
that, knowing where we came from, knowing our family tree, and knowing all of those beautiful things that made us who we are today is important to remain connected to. So I would say I definitely know more about it now, but I'm still wanting to learn more. So I would love to hear all the information that you have.
Maybe in a year we could do like challenge ourselves to put together like an altar for like ourselves and our
Yeah.
family. I definitely is something that I want to do because you kind of said you see like the family tree, like you see the generations, you see the pictures, you ask questions like, oh, who's this person or who's that person? It's definitely something my family did in Mexico, but when we moved to the US, we just stopped. And I think it's because it wasn't like super embraced or super popular at the time. But we were like, I guess we were just trying to survive and we were just trying to do our best. That we were like, yeah, we don't have time right now. But I do want to keep the family going and like just that tradition. I did set up an altar once and like me, myself and I like Val. And this was with my grandpa and we made a Barbie altar. So I wanted to
Oh,
do something different. So I had pink flowers. Yeah, instead of the orange, I had the pink flowers and like white candles and like Barbie clothes. I was like, oh my gosh, am I
that's
sacrificing
so
Barbie
cute.
right now? But but I had like Barbie in the altar, like come hang with
Remembering
me.
Barbie.
This is remembering. And then other than that, probably like NMSU, I was able to help with an altar there. And then like Messia, I was able to go and take pictures and do some stuff there. And so yeah, it's been mostly on my own, but like my mom and dad at this point, they're like they don't really practice it. Yeah, but in Mexico, if my mom's in Mexico with her family, like they'll do it, but not here in the
Yeah.
U.S.
It's more
So it's kind of
like if it's
yeah,
happening, then we'll go kind of a thing and we'll participate, but we're not gonna
yeah,
like go out of our way to, which is not bad. I mean, life gets busy,
yes.
right? Like that's just how it goes sometimes.
Yeah. Yeah, and then it's also lengthy because if you do it like the way it's supposed to be done, you start like building the altar like the 30th, the 31st. So it's the flowers and the food. And then the first day is for the kids. So November 1st is when it officially starts. And it's for Dia de los Infantes, which is for
Mm-hmm.
the infants, for like the little kids or babies. And then it goes into Day of the Dead, which is like everyone. So it is like kind of like a 2 day, 3 day holiday, depending on like how long you're building this altar, the flowers, the candles, the actual altar, the pictures. So like it does take a day to put together and
Mm-hmm.
then like the several days then that it goes into. So yeah.
Yeah. Well, and
So it
then
is kind of lengthy too.
there's different days for like other things too, right? Because I did just share on our story yesterday, I believe. I think the 27th, if I'm not mistaken, is the day designated for lost pets. So there's like different
Very
day.
cool.
Actually, let me look it up. I'm gonna because I'm curious about it
I know. Look at us learning about our culture.
in
Subscribe
real
because we
time.
are in the moment. Yeah, in real time we are learning about this. But no, it is really cool and I also love that our culture takes the time to like celebrate. I don't want to just say grieve, but like celebrate our pets and like things like that, and our grandparents and people that have passed. So no, again, seriously, subscribe. I'm gonna say that like throughout the episode. Be like, did you see Jenny doing research? Yeah, go subscribe. Go subscribe. I'm just gonna bully everyone into subscribing. Be like, did you see me pull up the notes? Yeah, I did that for you. Go subscribe. Man, that's funny.
Okay, let's see here. So I found um I don't see anything about pets, but like I said, I just saw that on Instagram. So maybe that's a new thing. And then it says
Mm.
October. I'm gonna put the link of this article that I found in the bio. So if you guys are curious, um, October 28th, a heartfelt start. So on this day, you light the first candle. Well, I don't know. I feel like maybe Val, this is what your research is, so I don't want to like step on your toes. This is like
No,
the
girl,
start
go
of
for it.
it. October 29th. This is a tribute for the unclaimed spirits. So my guess is this might be like any soul that maybe has never like fully come to life. I know that's a little bit of a controversial topic, but we honor them in our culture. A time for those called early. Okay, so those who maybe have passed young, and that's on October 30th. October 31st, honoring beloved ancestors. November 1st, Day of the Innocents. So that's like what you're talking about, Val, with like children or babies. November 2nd, gathering of adult spirits. November 3rd, bidding farewell. So that's like the final day where you light the final candle.
Mm-hmm.
So that's just kind of a very, very brief breakdown of what each day is kind of dedicated to.
Mm-hmm. No, that's really cool that like you were able to pull up that, because when we celebrated it, we only celebrated the first and the second. I don't know why. Maybe it's just because like those were like the people like in our immediate family.
Mm-hmm.
But no, that's really cool that it does go before that, because I would wonder that too. Like, how come they started theirs early? I'm like, what happened there?
Yeah.
But yeah, it's really cool. And that's the thing, is that it's all different for everyone, because everybody's family tree is different. So it's going to look different for everyone. And like how many people they're honoring or saying,
Or like the
goodbye
way
to
that
or
I like
whatever.
to describe
Yeah.
it too, because I feel like people forget, at least I forget, how big of a country Mexico is. And like Val can tell you, there's been a number of times where I go to try to find a Mexican restaurant here in Tennessee, and I get mad not because it's inauthentic, but because it's too authentic. Because I'm not gonna lie, you guys. I know this is a hot take, but I like Tex-Mex. Okay, I'm sorry.
Oh, yeah.
Sorry. I like Mexican food too. I like real authentic Mexican food, but like when your girl is craving a chile relleno, I want that breaded and fried. I want the unhealthy version.
Mm-hmm.
Like when I'm going for menudo, I want the hominy. I don't want the tripe. So I'm learning a lot of new things about like
Mm-hmm.
the food and stuff like that. But I think I get forgetful of how big of a country Mexico is, because Val is from Veracruz, and that food is more
Yeah.
tropical than, you know,
Yeah. And
where
seafood.
Juarez,
Yeah.
people in Juarez are making food. And so, same thing when it comes to the celebration of certain things. There might be certain traditions. Take Christmas, for example. There might be certain traditions in Chicago or New York or Florida or New Mexico or California that are just completely different because that is the region that you live in the United States. And so, kind of same thing when it comes to other things like Dia de los Muertos. Like Val's family might have only celebrated 1 or 2 days, but maybe in a different part of Mexico, they go all out because of where they're at. So it's kind of interesting to think about that stuff.
Yeah, so it's really cool because we're learning in real time. So you should go subscribe, because
Yeah.
because you literally saw his problem solve in real time. No, that's really really good. So okay, let me see. I took notes for you guys. Okay, cultural roots and meaning. Let's see. Do you think so? This is more of an afterlife question. Do you think Catholicism changed how Mexicans view death and the afterlife?
Yes, 100%.
Probably. But also it's cool. Yeah, but also I think it's cool because like the Aztecs have their own version of the afterlife, and then if you're raised Catholic and you believe you're gonna go to heaven, that's some form of afterlife, and then that goes back to like other cultures, like Egyptians or Asian cultures, where like their afterlife. So I don't know. I guess we'll just have to find out when we'll just have to find out when we die.
Stay tuned.
But stay tuned. Don't try to contact me. Yeah, don't contact me. But go subscribe to the channel.
Yeah,
Let's see.
I don't know. I've always found that topic kind of interesting because, like I told you, my grandma is very Catholic, and whenever I was
Hmm.
learning in school about like how people all over the world were being converted to Christianity and the awful things that happened to them if they weren't converted, so a lot of people's survival mechanism was to become Catholic. And then generations and generations later, there's still people practicing. And I think about that all the time. And I'm like, huh, like, I wonder what my ancestors were practicing before they, were converted. Because I do know a little bit about my ancestry, but it's pretty vague. Like, I know that one side of my family there's like some Mayan heritage, but I don't really know anything
Hmm.
about it. So I'm just super curious about that. And I'm like, dang, like, I wonder how different that would be if they weren't converted, or I wonder how the practices would be. I wonder how they would view death. I wonder how they would view this or that or blah, blah, blah.
Yeah, I want to be like, you guys go subscribe so Jenny and I can go see Mayan pyramid. Just kidding. Imagine we're walking around and all of a sudden we see like a picture that looks like Jenny. We're like, whoa, that's you in a different life.
That would be
Subscribe so
funny.
we can go to Mexico. Subscribe, fund our exploration. Just kidding. For research, fund our
We'll do
research.
an episode in the Mayan
I'm gonna,
temple. No, just kidding.
yeah,
They'll kick us
subscribe,
out.
subscribe.
But we'll do it like
Yeah,
near,
that's
like
fun.
we'll do it like 100 feet away if we need to.
Yeah. Okay. Let's see. Representation in modern culture. So I feel like we've already talked about. Well, maybe this is a good place to transition, like from your experience, my experience, to like where the tradition started to like where it's going now into like mainstream. So I
Yeah.
did a lot of research on like the root and like where this holiday started and transitioned, and then Jenny lightly touched on like the movies, and we will like fast forward into like modern culture and I'll later take over. But when I was researching this holiday, one thing that I really do love about it, regardless if you practice or not, because for example, I don't practice or make altars every year, but one thing that I do love is that it is an indigenous holiday that survived. It's like Mexico was colonized, we all became mixed, but still this tradition survived. And so I think it's still very beautiful because it's still practiced, and then it evolved into like what it is today with like the face painting, even like couture. Like I've seen a lot of like couture fashion shows like celebrating this, and like I'm like, oh wow, that's not what I grew up with when I was 6. Like it has become very like it's blown up. But the holiday was an Aztec holiday. They celebrated the goddess of death, and so it's really again interesting because it wasn't like the god of death; it was a goddess. I'm like, we had a female god of death. Wow. I'm all wow. And then it reminds me of like Greek and Roman, like they had Hades, which was the
Yeah.
god of the underworld, and so I'm like, very cool. And then another movie that's similar to Coco is Book of Life, and they have like the female like skeleton, like the Katrina, and she's just this gorgeous woman with a dress and like a beautiful hat. And so I can definitely see like elements of like what it used to be and what it was to like the Spanish influence, even like the couture dresses. Somebody was saying that those were actually French because again, the Katrina, she's like the woman that's become very famous that you see. But whenever she first started, it was because there was a lot of like, Mexican Europeans, like Eurocentric beliefs of like, oh, that's dumb, or like Day of the Dead is dumb, or like, oh, that's an indigenous holiday. So then they created this like, it's like a Betty Boop kind of like this cartoon of a very elegant woman that's dead and she's in European couture. And all of a sudden they're like, oh, this is cool. Like, we like this. And it's like, so basically, you needed to see your culture being expressed in Mexican culture for it to be like good enough for you, if
I
that makes
see.
sense.
Yeah, like at first they
And
didn't feel
so,
like they could connect with it, so they made fun of it. But then once they saw it
yes.
embodied in their own culture, they were like, oh, that's kind of interesting.
Yeah. So then she takes off, and then now it's fashionable and lots of women. And yeah, like they celebrate it. They have contests like who's the pretty. Oh, every state, this is something I've seen that I actually really like. Every state will do their own version of like La Catrina. So they'll be like Veracruz will have like maybe the skull makeup that's a little bit more like tropical
Tropical.
versus Mexico City where it'll be like more like lacy and like more, dressed up versus a different culture where maybe it's more agricultural. They'll have like a different type of like get up. And so it's really cool to see how even Mexico has invested into its own roots and holidays and having like fashion shows. And yeah, I don't know. I just think that's interesting, but I'm gonna let Jenny take over and her research because I think also Disney, because Disney is just a giant franchise, how Coco kind of blew up and also helped make it what it is, I guess.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, before I start, I want to say that was like super interesting. I don't know. I just love learning about my culture. So I didn't even know that it went that deep, but that's really cool. So, Coco came out, I want to say, like in 2017. Interestingly enough, my grandpa passed away in 2018. And I want to say maybe like 10 months before. The memory might be fuzzy, so I could be wrong. But I want to say 10 months before was when he got his diagnosis with ALS. Coco was actually there for me during a very crucial part of my life in my own dealing with death. And I remember I saw that movie with my fiance, my now fiance. Watching it, first of all, was so heartwarming because it made me feel less afraid of it, and it made me feel like, oh, like there's a way, there's a path that I can connect to him, you know? And then it also made me feel happy that my culture is seen. I do recognize that I am privileged in the sense that my features are very ethnically ambiguous. Like, not a lot of people know that I'm Hispanic. A lot of people just assume I'm like Italian or something. But I do see the realities that my people face all the time with not feeling like they are seen and not feeling like they are celebrated, especially in media and pop culture, and that could feel very isolating. So knowing that something was coming out that was going to celebrate something that we love so much, that just made my heart so happy. However, there is some controversy around it, and so I did want to talk about that just to kind of give a well-rounded perspective of what some of the things have happened. Now, I will leave some links in the bio as to where I got this information from. So some of it could just be speculation, just based off of some of the articles that I've seen, but a lot of it is pretty accurate. So the first thing is I do want to honor and mention our real life family that this movie was inspired by, which is the family of Maria Salud Ramirez. That is the real Mama Coco. Sadly, she did pass away October 16th of 2022, but she passed away at 109 years old. I need the
Whoa.
routine girl. I want to know what she was eating. I want to know like how she was living her life. That is so freaking cool that she lived for so long. Like, I just think that's absolutely amazing. And then just going back to my notes here, this family are from the town, it's called Santa Fe de Laguna in Mexico. So this family, I guess, was visited by Disney quite a few years before the movie was actually created. And according to one article, Pixar did deny, or has always denied, that Coco's grandma was based on anyone in real life, and said that it was the product of its creators' imagination. So I thought that was kind of interesting because they didn't really want to give credit to the family that it was based off of, but it's clear as day. Like, if you ever see pictures of Maria and her family and like the area, like the houses that they live in the neighborhood, like it's literally like the exact same. I've also seen online somewhere that Disney did not compensate the family for the inspiration of the movie, which I don't know, I feel like that can be kind of a controversial topic in and of itself, but I feel like it's just sad that they didn't really get any credit for it. And then lastly, I also heard rumors that Disney attempted to trademark the Day of the Dead long before Coco came out, like sometime back in 2013 is what I heard. I've heard a lot of rumors of this, so honestly this one I feel like could be the most true. Because I think what they were wanting to do is planning on trademarking the whole holiday so that they could utilize it for their movie and then basically get all of the benefits of like anything that would celebrate it, which sucks, honestly. Like I don't know.
Yeah.
I've worked for Disney. I have a lot of love in my heart for Disney for a lot of different reasons. It's, the reason why I have the relationship that I have right now. It's the reason why I've had so many wonderful opportunities and adventures in my early 20s. And just like the stories that they get to tell are so heartwarming, but Disney really does have a habit of doing this. I mean, look at the way that they've told the story of Pocahontas. And even though that's one of my favorite movies, I feel like it's one of those things where I kind of have to separate the art from the artist and be like, okay, well, let's take what we like and leave what we don't and just kind of move on from there. So that's kind of the research that I've done on Coco. Now, I will say one of the good things about Coco's success is that the cultural celebration has spread to many more populations. And I've actually seen a lot of TikTok videos where people are either asking like, "Hey, is it okay that I want to celebrate? Like I'm not of native descent, but I would really love to take part in this." And then other people stitching those videos and being like, "Yes, girl, like celebrate. Like that's what culture's all about so that we can all celebrate together. Like if you want to do an ofrenda, this is what you need to do. Like set it up this way, put the food that your family member liked, put all of the things that they enjoyed, maybe stuff from their hobbies, put pictures up, decorate it, get into it. These are what the days are dedicated to." And so that's something that I'm really loving about that popularization is I feel like Disney really did give it a kickstart so that it could be something that is more
Hmm.
shared and just more common in all different populations now.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. I think the other thing on why it's been hard to like carry that tradition or do that here in the US is because when I think of when I did it, and again, this is why I have so many good memories of living in Mexico, was because I had my grandparents. And so I remember doing these traditions with them and having them as like elders, like teaching me of like, well, this is what I know, this is what I did, this is, like having them. And then whenever we were saying goodbye to them when they did pass, like keeping that tradition alive. But then when we moved to the US, you feel almost, I don't want to say disconnected, but the family like shrinks. So that's another thing that's like in Mexico, sometimes you live with the grandparents or like you
Yeah,
like it's several generations. And
under
so
one
when I
roof.
lost, I feel like, yeah, I feel like I lost that second set of parents. And when it was just like my parents and I, again, they just get so caught up and just, day to day that it's like you lose almost, yeah, like you just stop doing it. But I think to tie it back to what you were saying is I think everyone should at least practice this or try this at least once because it's like setting up a Christmas tree, but for the people that you loved in your life and seeing like that picture because like the last time I saw a picture of my grandfather was like a few years ago, and like I have to make a conscious effort to look it up. So you feel really connected to the people that were in your life and you think about their favorite food or their favorite song. And so it's really beautiful. So if this is not your culture, I like highly encourage everyone to at least try it or like do an effort or do something to remember those that they were close with, I guess, if that
Yeah.
makes sense. And if it's for you and you feel like, wow, I love doing this, like I feel very connected to this, then do it. And if you don't, then you tried it. But I think culture is definitely not something that you should, how do you say, ask permission to experience. Does that make sense?
Yeah. Yeah,
Yeah.
I mean, I think as long as the intentions are good, that's all that really matters, you know? Like you're just
Yeah.
wanting to
Yeah.
be a part of something and learn about somebody else's life experiences. That's why we travel, right? Like because we want to get exposure
Yes,
to the things
exactly.
that we don't know, you know?
Mm-hmm.
I was so going back to what you were saying about feeling reconnected to the person who has passed on. This is something that I like about Mexican culture that is more common when it comes to death or funerals or just speaking about the dead in general. Is I feel like we are more willing to do it without fear. I think a lot of other cultures, like, you just don't talk about that person who's passed. Like if you do, like people become uncomfortable with it. But I feel like in Hispanic culture, it is really common to not just, do stuff like this where you have like a whole holiday dedicated to it, but also I think those tools are really important for remembering that person. Because I could tell you so many times where I'll be talking with my brother and we'll like randomly bring up a story, and then that story reminds him of something, and he's like, oh my god, do you remember when grandpa used to do this? And it's stuff that, like, oh, I got chills right now just thinking about it, but it's like stuff that I completely forgot about. Like, I remember this one time we were talking about like fitness and like being like fit when you get older, and before my grandpa's diagnosis with ALS, he was somebody who was like, he never stopped working. Like, even if he didn't have a job, like a full-time job, he would always be doing something in his little shop, or he would be gardening, or he would go to my uncle's and help my uncle out at his house and like do some yard work. Like, he was just so fit. And me and my brother were talking about that, and he was like, oh yeah, he was fit. Like, don't you remember when he used to do that thing with like the pole where like he could put himself completely on his side? And I was like, oh my god, I forgot about that. Like, he could literally, like a pole, he would just grab it and like completely go sideways, like calisthenics. I'm
Oh,
like,
what is that? The
that's
human
freaking
flag? The human
crazy.
flag?
Yeah, I guess so, yeah. And I was just like, I
Oh.
forgot about that. Or like, if I were doing an ofrenda this year, one thing that I would put on there to remember him would be animal crackers. Like, my man loved animal crackers. One time I got him this giant tub of animal crackers for Christmas, and he was so excited. So like, just indulging in those things, or like something that I like to do at least once a year is I'll watch Zorro, because that was one of my grandpa's favorite movies. And I feel
Mm.
like it's so important to just like sit there and like bask in those stories, or like just immerse yourself in the things that they liked whenever they were here. And you don't have to do that just on Dia de los Muertos. Like, you can do that anytime. So like, don't be afraid to just
Mm-hmm.
remember them, and don't be afraid to talk. I think that's the other thing too, is a lot of times when people bring up somebody who's passed, they're like, oh, I'm so sorry, and then the conversation just ends there. But like, don't be afraid to be like, what were they like? Because that person might want to talk about them. They might not, but they might want to talk about them, and nobody's giving them the opportunity to. And you giving them that opportunity is going to bring that person back to life for just that, little second in their memory.
Yeah, no, I completely agree. And hopefully this episode just sparks a little bit more human discussion, especially about people that used to be in our lives, because my grandfather, he had a lot of roles, but he was a banker in his life, and he was also a school teacher. And so my grandfather would get so excited when I'd bring home like school projects. And so that's how that happened, that he helped me with the ofrenda, was because I was like, yeah, I have this project. Do you want to do it with me? And he's like, do I want to do it with you? Like he was just kind of that guy that would like step up and like read me stories. I thank him for being literate in Spanish. Like, I know how to read and write, and I thank him because he was the one that like taught me. And so I hope that with this episode, maybe you have a conversation with, your parents or your siblings, and just remember like those people that planted little seeds. But for him, he's like, just stay curious, like just be a curious person, like just learn as
Yeah.
much as you can. And so yeah, I feel like this episode is much more than just culture. It's also about like connecting with myself and connecting with Jenny and hearing about her and her grandpa. Like, I didn't know your grandpa was fit like that, Jen.
Yeah.
That's cool. That's really cool. I'm just
Yeah.
like, dang.
I know, I'm
What's your
trying to get
last
on that
name?
level. I'm like, so that was my maternal grandfather. So Chago Martinez. Well, his first name is Santiago, but
Mm,
everybody would call him Chago.
mm-hmm.
Yeah.
That's
So
really cool.
yeah.
So, okay, let's see. I have a few other questions. I feel like we talked about Coco. I really actually enjoyed the movie Coco. So in the family, I forgot like the names, but the family comes from like shoemaking. Like
Yeah.
they're shoemakers. And you see a lot of the tools and they work with a lot of leather. My dad has family in Zacatecas and they're also shoemakers. So
Oh,
this
that's
is really
cool.
interesting. But growing up, Yeah, a lot of my shoes were leather, but it was because it was like that was like what the family trade. That's what they used to do,
Hmm.
or like that's like one branch of the family that used to work leather. So then when I watched Coco, I was like, is that like stereotypical or is that just like I even had questions. I'm like, that's weird.
You're like, is
But
this based
yes,
off of
the
my
smell of
family?
yeah, I'm like, is this it's like, is this about me? Oh my god. But oh gosh, that's funny. But the smell of leather does like bring up just
That
like really
memory.
good memories. I'm like, oh wow.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm all family. Let me see. So we touched on Jenny's personal relation to Coco and its positive message, controversy of the Disney adaptation. I think Disney, if they can own it, they'll buy it. I feel like that's just, I don't think it's
Yeah.
personal. If they can own it, they'll buy it. But it's like you can't buy the culture, bro.
Everything.
You can't just yes, how the celebration is spreading onto other cultures. I think that's one of my favorite things because it really does put Mexico on the map. And I think that again just goes into like not just romanticizing narco culture or like not just
Mhm.
romanticizing this like drug lord story. You know the novelas? Do you know like
Yeah.
there's a famous one about a female. Yes,
Yeah.
yes. I feel like there's so much like romanticization of like the violence and the drugs and the heist, and it's like, okay, it's not. Yes,
Yeah.
but
Well,
it's
I
not
feel
just
like
that.
that's like the only idea that a lot of the novellas have nowadays. And not just in Spanish culture, like what was that one? Money laundering too. Like Ozark was a big one, or like Money Heist. I've never seen Money Heist, but if I'm not mistaken, I'm pretty sure it's like a very similar plot where it's like money
Yeah.
laundering and like
Mm-hmm.
they almost get caught and then they don't and then they get cocky, so then they start doing crazy stuff and then they almost get caught and then it's like the same thing over and over again. But tying it specifically back to Mexico, it does suck that that was like a big storyline for a lot of different shows at a certain point in time, because all that does is make people scared to go visit Mexico when that's not what all of Mexico
Mm-hmm.
is all about. That would be like saying that the United States is like all there is gun violence here. And I don't want to get
Yes,
political, but
exactly.
because I know that gun violence is an issue. I'm not negating that at all. But it's not the only thing. You know what I mean? Like there's so many different things that are happening
Yeah.
every single day, and this country is so big that like that's not the only thing that's going on here. Or like it's not just about gang violence. Like if you were just seeing shows over and over and over again, it's like another gang show from the US. Wow, that's such a dangerous place to live. And unfortunately, a lot of people actually
Yes.
do think that. Like I remember when I lived in
Mm-hmm.
Orlando, I used to work at this shoe store, and there was this lady who came in from England, and she needed some new shoes because she didn't realize how much walking she was going to be doing in Disney. And when I was checking her out, she was like, "Oh, can I ask you something? Like, I don't want to be offensive or anything." I was like, "No, you're good. Like, what's going on?" And she was like, "Are we safe here?" And like honestly, that just broke my heart that she felt the need to ask that. And I was like, "What do you mean?" And she was like, "I'm just so scared of like what I've seen in the news, like shootings every day." And like it just made me so sad because I'm like, "Dang, like for you to like come to another country and feel that you're not safe because of the way that these news stories are being spun and like how immediate our access is to the news on our phones. It's really sad because it doesn't show the full story of what each of these countries is really all about, and the beauty that can come from
Yeah, absolutely. That was beautiful. You should go subscribe, people. Did you hear that? You should just subscribe for that. We should just subscribe. I
them.
was just like, wow. Even I'm gonna go subscribe. That was so good. I am subscribed.
Okay, I
But
was gonna say, why aren't you
no,
subscribed?
to yes, no, to tie it back. My coach, one thing that he talks about a lot, and again, somebody that's had a major influence in like how I process and who I am, but he always talks about point of reference. It's like sometimes people only have a certain point of reference. So I was talking to someone about New Mexico, and I was like, "Yeah, I'm New Mexican." Like, well, yeah, I'm like from New Mexico. And he's like, "Oh my gosh, like, are you glad to be out of there?" And I was like, "Why? Like, what are you talking about?" And he's like, "Yeah, like, it's so dangerous." And then Breaking Bad came out. Is everybody really on meth? And I was like, Oh my gosh. But it's because that's his only point of
Yeah.
reference. So he doesn't know about the balloon fiesta. He doesn't know about like Rodoso, or like we posted about Roswell, and like how Area 51 is there, and
Yeah.
the nukes were dropped there, and like there's so many awesome cool things about New Mexico, and
Or the
his only
caverns.
point of reference, yes, is just blue meth and like what is it? Breaking Bad. And
Yeah.
so when I talk to people, I assess like their point of reference. And I really do give people the benefit of the doubt. If they're rude or if they're insensitive, I'll just say like they just don't know. Like they literally, their only point of reference, like they just don't know. Like they're saying this stuff out of not being educated. And if they're educated and they're just rude or mean, I'm like, oh, we're just like beep,
Yeah.
like. But I was like, oh well, that was a show, but yeah, like that is a huge problem. And then I explained why, and also how like Hollywood was able to capitalize on that, because it's like, hey, there's a problem, let's make a show out of it. Yeah, it's also cool to see that narrative flip and showcase like authentic, beautiful Mexican history and culture, and then also invite people to celebrate in it, because people get a different point of reference. Yeah.
Yeah.
Dang, Jenny, you.
What I thought you were gonna say, I thought you were gonna tell me about like a conversation where he thought you were from Mexico. Because if you're from New Mexico and you know, and you live in a different state now, you have at least had this conversation one time where somebody's like, "Hey, where are you from?" And you say New Mexico, and they're like, "Wow, your English is so good." And it's because they don't realize that New Mexico is a state. And don't get me wrong, I am not the most geographically intelligent person. Sometimes I forget about Delaware. Okay? Sometimes I forget. But I know it's a state. Like I'll never forget
Yeah.
this one time when I lived in North Carolina. I went to go get alcohol at the ABC store. So this girl was like, "Can I see your ID?" And I show it to her, and she was like, "Oh, wow, that's interesting." And I was like, "What?" And she was like, "Normally, when I get people from Mexico, they'll show me their passport." And I was like, "Oh, no, no. I'm from New Mexico, like the state." And she was like, "What?"
Hmm.
And I was like at this point I've already had a few conversations like this, so I was like, "Oh, she doesn't know, like let me just
Hmm.
educate her." So I was like, "Yeah, like the state between not Tennessee, the state between Texas and Arizona." And she was like bagging up my stuff, and she was like, "Yeah, like I didn't even realize that was a state." And I was just like, "Bro, like that's not good." Like I really hope she
Yeah,
googled when
dang.
she went home. But yeah,
She's like, I learned
that'll
something new
happen.
today. Dang. No, I have that conversation a lot because I feel like hopefully I look very Latina. I hope so. But
You do
people are
to
like,
me.
"Oh, so where are you from?" And thanks. So a lot of people assume that I'm native, which like I'll take it. Like I am from my grandma's side. Like love it. But then when I say like, "Oh, I'm from New Mexico," the new like they just hear
They don't
Mexico
hear
and
it.
they're like, "Wow." And it's
Yeah.
like what you said. They're like, "Your English is so good." And I'm like, "Thanks." Like we speak English in New Mexico. Yeah. Like so it's funny. It's funny. Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh. That's funny. So I do have some reflective closing questions. What does remembering our ancestor teach us about living today? I guess for me it's like
Um,
stay curious. Like that is one thing my grandpa said, and like every day I try to learn something and stay curious. And that's how I like pay
yeah.
tribute to him.
Yeah. I think specifically in regards to this topic, how important culture is to like carry on through the generations, because it does make you feel connected to the people that you came from. And I just think it's so cool that
Mhm.
this is something that has stuck around for so long. Like it's still here, and it's still something that is being celebrated even through that conversion that happened so long ago with Christianity and Catholicism. In regards to like specific family members, I would say my grandpa just taught me to be strong and to like laugh through it, because all of the stories that
Mhm.
he told me, he was either telling me about like a hardship that he went through, or he was telling me like a funny story. And I just love how like lighthearted of a person he was. He never really took things super seriously. There were times where he was serious, but for the most part like he was just laughing and like having a good time. And so I want to carry that into my own life.
Yeah. Okay. How has learning about your cultural roots changed your view on death and life? So I like this one. So your cultural roots. Just that every culture is different, that every culture has, not every, but a lot of cultures have beliefs on like what happens to us after we die. I don't know that anyone is right or wrong. I just know that in my culture, this is what we believe and that it's beautiful. Like, I think Egyptian culture is beautiful and Asian culture is beautiful and my culture is beautiful. And as excited as I am to learn about my culture, I'm also excited to learn about other cultures. So I guess it just showed me that we're all more connected than we are like different. Like, yeah,
Yeah. Yeah.
yeah.
I feel like I don't know if it actually changed anything for me because I feel like I've always kind of had this mindset when it comes to my thoughts on death. But like I said earlier, I noticed that it is so different from other people because I have such a big Mexican family. Sadly, I've been to a lot of funerals, and that's something that I've been exposed to since I was really young. Like, I remember the first funeral that I ever went to was my great grandfather, which was a little
Hmm.
scary to me. Like, I do remember having nightmares after seeing him in the casket, but I think that ultimately having those experiences and having to go to so many different funerals was beneficial to me because it normalized that occurrence, like I said, that happens to us. And that's the other thing too, like it wasn't even just family members. Like, so I keep saying I'm from Las Cruces from sorry, I keep saying I'm from Las Cruces, New Mexico, but I'm actually from a really small town near Las Cruces called Chamberino, New Mexico. The population is literally only 1,000. So whenever I was in third grade, then I moved to Las Cruces. But being from Chamberino, you have a very tight knit community, and there's all kinds of comadres that my grandma had all over that neighborhood. She would go to their house for cafecito and talk to them and stuff like that. And so even people who weren't directly in my family, I would go to their rosaries. It was a very common thing
Mm.
for us to like pay our respects, even though they weren't directly related to us. It was something to make them feel loved and to like add another prayer to that prayer group. So, like I said, being exposed to that from such a young age, I think made me less afraid of it. Don't get me wrong, I'm still afraid of it. Like, I'm a human being, and maybe we could talk about that on a whole different episode because I've had a lot of existential crises growing up. But I think now that I'm early, like getting closer to my 30s, I'm seeing how beneficial it was to me because, for example, my fiance has never been to any funeral, and that's because his family is so small. And so I'm not gonna lie, I'm kind of worried about how that's gonna like be handled whenever he does go to his first funeral. So just very different, a lot of differences, and yeah.
No, that's no, I think that's beautiful. Because again, culture, like culturally, we come from big families, and then culturally, other ethnicities have smaller families. Okay, do you think celebrating Dia de los Muertos can help us heal generationally? So this is Conscious Comadres. So yes, I think that's one of the reasons why we wanted to do this episode. I guess, everything is what you make it. Like, if you think it can heal you, then it can. If you think it can't, it's just some other tradition from some other culture, then that's what you're going to see. But personally, I think that it can help you connect to people you didn't know you were related. Like, this is the other really cool thing is that you never know who's in your family if you never look. For example, I was telling Jenny, one of my great, great, great grandfathers came from France. This is not a good team, but he fought in the Battle of Puebla. So everybody, when they think of Cinco de Mayo, that's what they're referring to as the Battle of Puebla. The U.S. helped Mexico during that battle because the French wanted to take over Mexico and also go into like Texas. So the US was like, no, it's in our best interest to help Mexico because that's going to also help us from like the French. They were fighting the Civil War at the time. So the US was like busy fighting the Civil War and they didn't want to also fight the French. So they were like, no, no, like we got to help the Mexicans. Well, my great 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 grandfather, you guys can Google this, also go subscribe, was French and he fought in that battle with the French. So it's just like, wow, that's crazy. But you wouldn't know if you don't look. So you should
Yeah.
go look and see who's in your bloodline.
Or
You
like
might
it's
be
crazy to
shocked.
think, yeah, like it's crazy to think about the fact that we do come from both because I think a lot of people
Yeah, yeah,
like
yeah.
get, and rightfully so, they do get really riled up about like that's the colonizer's language and this and stuff, you know. But it's like, well, you're both, you're colonizer and you're native. You know what I mean? Like most
You're
likely.
both.
Maybe not, like, because there are a lot of
Yeah.
people who do live in Mexico that are still purely native, but
Mhm.
it's part of you, it's part of our history, and it is interesting to kind of see how far back it goes. And I don't know, I really want to get an ancestry.com like premier membership
Same.
because I just want to learn
Yeah.
so much about my Hispanic side of the family. I feel like I also want to learn a lot about my white side of the family because I have been able to go pretty far back with like the free records that I have access to. But the like how far I've gotten so far, it like they're still in the US and I'm like, where did we come from? When did we come over here? Like I want to know, you know? Like I just want to know
Yeah.
the
Yeah.
stories about these people, and like I just find it super interesting. But anyways, let's move on to the next topic.
Oh my gosh, this one's really sweet. What message would you want to send the loved ones you are honoring this year? So I have a lot. I have so much. I'm really into fashion. My grandma was a seamstress. So it's funny because somewhere in the Osoyo timeline, we had family members that would make shoes, like in the movie Coco. And then my
Mm-hmm.
grandma, she was a seamstress. So my grandma was really good at math, about measuring
Oh, okay.
waist, legs. Like she was a wizard with the freaking measuring tape. And she was a seamstress and she made a lot of her clothes. And so I'm buying clothes right now. I'm like, dang, I really wish I had my grandma because she was like my personal tailor.
Mm-hmm.
And she taught me a lot about fashion. And I wish I would have learned more from her. Or just my grandpa, Stay Curious. Or just, I have so many, I guess just them two. I wasn't very close to my other grandpa, but I just remember looking at the countryside with him. So,
Yeah. So
yeah,
the
like,
grandpa
I
that
wish, I
did
hope they're
the
proud.
yeah, they are. I know they are. The grandpa who you're telling me that helped you out with the Dia de los Muertos, is that your dad's dad or your mom's dad?
Mm-hmm.
Your
No, my dad's
dad's.
dad. Yeah.
Okay.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, Jenny,
I
your
feel
turn.
like
Your
what I
turn.
would I feel like what I would tell them is I would really want to speak to my grandpa and my Grammy, who is my dad's mom. I met my dad's dad before, but I didn't really. He was really young when I passed. He was like I was 6 when he passed, so I didn't really know him on that level. But I would just say I'm doing my best. Keep sending me your strength. I know I come from a long line of wonderful, genuine, beautiful people, and to keep, you know, giving me all of those beautiful traits that you had so that I could keep surviving and thriving in this
Mm.
lifetime because your girl is trying to do she's got goals to meet, you know what I mean? I sometimes
Yeah.
I need that strength still, but I'm so happy that I got to know them, and I'm so happy that I was honored and blessed by God to have those wonderful people in my life because yeah, grief is really hard. Grief is so hard and it can feel so isolating at times, but I think it's also proof that we loved somebody. There was actually this video where Andrew Garfield is getting interviewed, one of the Tonight shows, I can't remember which one it was, but he's talking about his mom who passed away and he's like kind of tearing up a little bit. And again, I feel like a lot of people get really uncomfortable with that and they're like, "Ooh, like how do we handle this?" And he's like, "No, like it's okay. I tear up because I knew this person and I have all this love for them that's still unexpressed. And so it makes it,
Mm-hmm.
you know, hard sometimes because you want to cry, but it's such a blessing because you knew that person to begin with and you had so much love for them. So, like, yes, it's hard when they're gone, but know that the fact that you were lucky enough to know that person to begin with is such a beautiful blessing. So I try to look at death more in that sense
Mm-hmm.
because, again, it is going to happen to all of us and it is really sad and it is heart wrenching and heartbreaking. And especially depending on the person who passes, like it can be so life changing in a lot of really bad ways sometimes. But that little hope might help you just a little bit in being like, you know what? They were here. They were here. And I saw them and I was with them
Mm-hmm.
and I got to experience them. And that's magical.
Yeah. Yeah. Wow, that's a beautiful way to kind of wrap this up. But Thank you guys for showing us so much love and being here with us. And I hope that this episode helps you guys connect to your loved ones and be curious about your family tree, family line, and just go see who you're related to.
Yeah.
Yeah, Jenny, do you have any other thoughts?
I would love to know. You guys should comment down below who you're celebrating this year, what you're putting on your ofrenda.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe if you have a funny little story about the person that you're celebrating, I would love to know that. And that's pretty
Mm-hmm.
much all I have. But where can they find us?
All right, you guys. So links are posted down below, so you can find Jenny's social, my socials, and also a link to Deep Naked Thoughts, which is my podcast, a little bit more psychology based, but super super cool stuff. Not always psychology based. Actually, I have some really cool interviews coming up. Some of them detailing even like cancer survivors. So it's really cool because I mean, that's super psychological. So, I mean, it is just a really cool show. Jenny is super active on her socials. She shares some amazing things for your overall like health and well-being. She's also a former coach. So I would say like follow Jenny, follow Deep Naked Thoughts if that is something that you also want to listen to. And we will post links down below. Yeah.
Yes. Next week, I know we've been putting it off for quite a long time because we kind of decided on these Halloween episode last 2 weeks ago, I want to say, and then this episode. But we're going to be back to regularly scheduled programming by the time this one comes out. So our next episode is going to be on cognitive distortions, and we are going to get back to a little bit of that psychology conversation soon. So stay tuned for that.
Mm-hmm.
We hope you guys are doing well. We hope you're having a beautiful Dia de los Muertos. Please take care of yourself. Please be kind to yourself. Give yourself grace. I know this can also be a hard time of year for some people because of the reminder that it brings to them that there are people that are no longer in their lives. But we hope that this helps you kind of look at it in more of a warm way, and again reminds you that you were blessed to have that person in your life and you are a wonderful person, so keep shining your light. So that's all we have for you, comadres.
Yeah, that's all we have for you guys. Sending you guys so much love. Bye.
Bye.